My husband practically dragged me to a dinner party at his close female friend's luxury penthouse, saying I should meet more people. Inside the lavishly decorated apartment, his close female friend nudged my arm. Marcus is amazing in bed. A solid 7 inches. My mind went completely blank, unable to utter a word. She suddenly laughed loudly, reaching out to pat Marcus's chest. Last time we went to the club and played Truth or Dare, he lost. So I made him be my dog for a month. I stared sharply at Marcus, but he just scratched his head and laughed it off indifferently. It's just guy talk. Don't take it to heart. That's just how she is. But seriously, if you could just loosen up a bit, I wouldn't have to complain to everyone about how boring you are. The mocking gazes around me felt like daggers. I fought back tears, realizing that while I had given up my privileged background and was devoting myself to domestic life for him, he was out seeking thrills with his close female friend. Tiffany walked over, holding a wine glass. Grace, I hear you're a stay-at-home wife. Marcus must be under too much pressure. Why don't you come work as a maid at my place? I smiled. You're not even fit to tie my shoes. And you expect me to wait on you? Grace, are you out of your mind? It's Tiffany's birthday today. Do you have to spoil everyone's fun? Apologize to her right now. Marcus's face darkened, and he angrily reprimanded me. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Everyone present looked at me as if I were insane. Tiffany stood with her arms crossed, chin held high, exuding triumph. Marcus's buddies started whispering, their undisguised mockery audible. How can she talk like that? Tiffany was just joking. Is it really that big a deal? A stay-at-home wife really thinks she's someone important. The voices pierced me painfully. Yet, my mind drifted back to the tsunami many years ago. Overwhelming waves had swept me into the deep sea. Despair and suffocation had nearly swallowed me whole. It was Marcus who selflessly pulled me back from the brink of death. To repay that kindness, I had willingly hidden my background and toned down my ambition, devoting myself to domestic life. Day after day, I thought our love had transcended life and death, unbreakable. But his coldness in that moment turned my years of sacrifice into a colossal joke. Tiffany arrogantly walked up to me and poured red wine on the floor. Then she looked at Marcus, a challenging smirk on her lips. A bet's a bet. Marcus, you said you'd be my dog. Now, make her lick all that wine off the floor. Don't leave a single drop. Marcus actually looked hesitant, seemingly considering it. Before he could respond to Tiffany, I expressionlessly picked up another bottle of red wine from the table. Under their stunned gaze, I poured the entire bottle over Tiffany's head. The wine drenched her perfectly styled hair and white dress. I looked at Tiffany and burst out laughing. Doesn't that make things much cleaner? Ah! Tiffany let out a shriek. She frantically wiped the wine from her face, her eyes venomous as she looked at me. Marcus, look at your wife. She's like a rabid dog. I was just joking. Did she really get so worked up? Tisk. TSK. It's clear you haven't been satisfied. Carrying all that resentment. Marcus's face was a mask of embarrassment and fury. He felt I had completely humiliated him in front of his buddies. Grace, Tiffany is my best friend. What's wrong with a few jokes? You don't know how to conduct yourself socially, and now you dare to resort to violence? Tiffany insistently shook his arm. Marcus, didn't you say she always listened to you? Make her kneel down and lick my shoes clean, or this isn't over today. Marcus's face darkened, and he roared at me in a fit of rage. Grace, Tiffany was doing you a favor by inviting you today. Do you have to make such a scene? Apologize to Tiffany immediately. Watching his manipulative facade that twisted right from wrong, I felt a chill in my heart. The once charming eyes and brows now looked utterly repulsive, under the cheers and egging on of Tiffany and a group of childhood friends. Marcus, to prove his macho image and salvage his so-called pride, stepped forward and raised his hand high. I told you to apologize. Are you deaf? The sharp, stinging sound of a slap echoed. Everyone in the living room gasped. My face was stinging with pain, but it was nowhere near a fraction of the pain in my heart. All my illusions, all my hopes, were shattered by that slap. He was no longer the hero who saved me from peril in my memories. He was just a hypocritical and cowardly man. I didn't cry, nor did I make a scene. I just calmly looked at him. Then I grabbed the glass ashtray from the coffee table and hurled it at his head. Marcus hadn't expected me to fight back. He couldn't dodge in time, and it hit him squarely on the temple. We're over. Marcus. I uttered that cold sentence and turned to leave. Marcus clutched his forehead, too much in pain to speak. Tiffany and the others were stunned by the sudden turn of events. No one chased after me. Behind me, I heard Tiffany's panic-stricken screams and my friend's chaotic exclamations. The night wind outside was exceptionally cold. It blew on my face, yet made me feel incredibly clear-headed. I took out my phone and called Ethan, my assistant. Ethan, I need you to do 3 things for me. First, immediately draft divorce papers. Second, freeze all of Marcus's accounts and credit cards. Third, investigate Tiffany. I want all her background information and recent whereabouts. Marcus. Tiffany, you won't be able to afford the price of that slap. I returned to the riverside mansion my father had given me. As the cold river wind blew through the window, I made a video call to my father. On the other end of the screen, my father saw the redness and swelling on my face, and his eyes instantly turned sharp. Who did this? I shook my head and forced a smile. Dad, it's just a minor incident. I'll handle it. I just suddenly realized that for the past few years, I've been a complete fool, in pursuit of what I believed was pure love. I had hidden my true identity and played the role of an ordinary couple with a man for so long. Thinking back on it now, it was truly ridiculous, but perhaps it was for the best. This betrayal finally allowed me to see Marcus for who he truly was. As dawn broke, Ethan appeared with some documents. MS. Grace. Marcus has repeatedly embezzled funds from the company account over the past few years. The total exceeds $3 million, and most of it was used to buy luxury goods and luxury cars for Tiffany. After flipping through a few pages of the transaction records, I lost interest. What about Tiffany's background? Ethan's expression became somewhat subtle. She publicly claimed to be from a wealthy family, but the source of all her high expenditures points to one person, Robert, chairman of the song. A cold smirk played on my lips when I heard that name. Robert was old enough to be Tiffany's father. Interesting. A secret mistress, yet daring to be so arrogant and domineering. Robert has a son named Alexander, correct? Ethan nodded. Yes. Alexander is the Song family's sole legitimate heir and just recently returned from abroad. I closed the file. My lips curved upwards. Arrange a meeting with him for tomorrow. At that moment, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was Marcus. He had discovered his accounts were frozen and called, furious, to question me. Grace, what do you mean? Why did you cut off all my cards? Do you know how humiliating it was when I had to pay for my medical expenses? I let out a soft laugh. Don't you feel guilty spending that money? Marcus was rendered speechless. Then his tone softened. Grace, listen to me. I drank too much last night. Tiffany and I are really just friends. Don't overthink it. Just unfreeze the accounts first, and we can go home and talk properly, okay? I pierced through his lie with a sharp remark. Did you also drink too much when you spent all that money on Tiffany? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, followed by a furious roar born of embarrassment. Grace, do you have to keep dwelling on it? It's just normal interactions between friends. You're just jealous that Tiffany is younger and prettier than you, and more appealing to men. Before he could finish, a seductive female voice, hoarse with a hangover, vaguely drifted from the phone. Marcus, I want more. It was Tiffany. Marcus's breath caught, and he immediately explained in a panic. Tiffany blacked out from drinking last night. I stayed behind to take care of her because I was worried. Listening to his clumsy lies, I felt utterly disgusted. He also noticed my silence and began threatening me with bluster. Grace, I'm telling you, don't push your luck. You're a good-for-nothing stay-at-home wife. You're nothing without me. You'd better unfreeze the accounts right now, or you'll regret it. I couldn't be bothered to say a single word and simply hung up. Immediately, I sent a message to Ethan. Find a way to get concrete evidence of Marcus and Tiffany's affair. After doing all this, I composed myself and left for my appointment. A subtle excitement stirred within me. The real show was about to begin. Alexander and I met at an exclusive club. He wore a well-tailored suit and had a detached expression. He seemed even more composed and perceptive than the rumors suggested. Alexander spoke first. MS. Grace, I've heard a great deal about you, he said. MS. Grace, not Mrs. Marcus. It seemed he had done his homework. I got straight to the point. Mr. Alexander, I invited you here today to discuss a partnership. He picked up his teacup, gesturing for me to continue. A mistress dependent on the Song family, yet getting entangled with other men outside. I believe that, whether for the Song family's reputation or for your future inheritance, cleaning house is the most urgent matter at hand. I pushed a photo across the table to him. It was a picture of Marcus and Tiffany behaving intimately at a club, which Ethan had just sent me. I hope Mr. Alexander and I can join forces. A mutually beneficial arrangement. Alexander looked at the photo, then spoke after a moment of silence. How do you propose we cooperate, Ms. Grace? It's simple. I'll take Mr. Alexander to see a good show. Half an hour later, we arrived at the marina, not far away, on a yacht. Music was blasting and voices were booming. Tiffany, wearing a sexy bikini, stood in the center of the crowd with Marcus. A group of people was playing a game. They were passing a tiny slip of paper mouth to mouth. When it was Marcus and Tiffany's turn, the slip of paper accidentally dropped. Their lips met. Louder cheers and whistles erupted from around them. Without a hint of hesitation, I boarded the yacht from a smaller boat. The music and laughter came to an abrupt halt. All eyes turned to me. Marcus and Tiffany quickly separated, a flicker of panic crossing their faces. Tiffany was the first to react. She crossed her arms and looked at me derisively. Well, if it isn't Marcus's nagging wife. What? Worried Marcus is running wild outside and won't have the energy to satisfy you at home? You'd better keep a close eye on him, because we're close friends, and we don't get petty like women do when we play. Marcus's face hardened, and he pointed at me accusingly. Grace, are you ever going to stop haunting me like a ghost, determined to embarrass me in front of my buddies? I looked at him coldly. If I hadn't come, I wouldn't have known how shameless you and your so-called friends could be. Marcus's face flushed crimson with anger as he roared, Tiffany and I were just playing a game. We've been friends for years. What's the big deal? You, on the other hand, what kind of filthy thoughts are you harboring? Do you think everyone's trying to sleep with each other? You women are truly humiliating. He swore up and down, as if he were upright and honorable and I was an unreasonable woman. I ignored their yelling and calmly made a gesture. Alexander, standing on the marina, understandingly dialed a number. Richard, there are some urgent issues with the Southside project. You'd better come down here personally. Meanwhile, Marcus and Tiffany still hadn't realized the crisis. Tiffany was still smug, her eyes filled with disdain. Marcus, your wife really needs to be disciplined. Who do you think you are? You're not even worthy to look at yourself in a mirror. Marcus is too embarrassed to do it, but I'm his close friend, and today I have to teach you, this ill-mannered woman, a proper lesson. Next to her, Marcus stood with a sullen face, letting everything happen. Several people surrounded me, looking hostile, ready to get physical. But just then, a speedboat sped towards us. Robert, with a stern face, boarded the yacht, followed by several bodyguards. He immediately saw Tiffany, scantily clad, and Marcus beside her. When met Robert's gaze, her face instantly went pale, and she quickly hid behind Marcus. But whose face was livid, yanked her out. In front of everyone, he slapped Tiffany hard across the face. You bitch! The farce on the yacht ended with Robert forcibly dragging away a hysterically weeping Tiffany. Only remained on the yacht, standing dispiritedly. The wound on his temple still throbbed faintly, but the greater pain was the humiliation of being exposed in public. He looked at me, his eyes a mix of anger, shame, and a hint of pleading. Grace, do you really have to be so ruthless? I couldn't even be bothered to give him another look and turned to Alexander, who had been waiting in the speedboat. The night wind ruffled my hair, scattering the last trace of gloom in my heart. Alexander draped a jacket over my shoulders. He didn't ask anything, simply saying, "Let's go. I'll take you home." From that moment on, I knew that Marcus and I were completely over. Marcus still thought I was just giving him the silent treatment. He was convinced I couldn't live without him. After all, for the past few years, no matter how outrageous he was, I would always give in. So, he didn't call again. He wanted to wait for me to calm down and dutifully come home. He even complained to his friends about my unreasonable fuss. Women are such a pain. They make a big deal out of nothing. She'll be fine in a couple of days. She's always like this. It wasn't until he discovered that I had taken all my belongings from the luxury penthouse. My clothes, which I often wore, were gone from the walk-in closet. My skincare products had vanished from the vanity. Even the mug I always used was taken with me. The apartment was empty, without a trace of my presence. Only then did a hint of panic begin to set in. He started bombarding me with messages. At first, they were imperious commands. Come back when you're done throwing your tantrum. My patience is limited. When I left him on read, his tone softened. Grace, I was wrong. Please don't be angry. Can we talk this over properly? I still didn't reply. He completely panicked. My calls went unanswered, and my messages were ignored. He ran around like a chicken with its head cut off, searching for me in all the places we used to frequent. But he found nothing. Only then did he belatedly realize that I seemed to be truly disappearing from his world. This feeling of losing control terrified him. Meanwhile, I was visiting an art exhibition accompanied by Alexander. The exhibition was hosted by The Song. Alexander didn't take me to a noisy club like Marcus would have. He brought me to the world of art, an area I had always been very interested in. He wore a well-fitted suit and exuded elegance. He listened attentively as the curator explained the background of each painting. Then, with his insights, he exchanged quiet thoughts with me. He remembered I had casually mentioned my fondness for Impressionism, so he specifically showed me several original Monets. At dinner, he pulled out my chair for me. The dishes he ordered were also to my preferred tastes. He rarely talked about himself, mostly listening to my work, my ideas, my past. Ms. Grace, you are very talented. You shouldn't be trapped in domestic life. He looked into my eyes, his tone sincere. You should have your own career and aspirations. I looked at him, and a warmth spread through me. It was a long-lost feeling of being respected and understood. Marcus had never spoken to me like that. In his eyes, I was merely an accessory, boring, conservative, nothing without him. The contrast was stark. That evening, Alexander drove me home. Before he left, he handed me a box, a small gift. I hope you like it. I opened it to find a custom-made fountain pen. My initials were engraved on the barrel. It was from my favorite designer brand, expensive, but not overly ostentatious. Thank you. I really like it. I thanked him sincerely. He smiled, the moonlight illuminating the side of his face. There's a business forum tomorrow. Interested in attending together? It might be helpful for your new plans. He didn't pressure me at all, just offered a choice. I nodded. Okay. Watching him drive away, I took out my phone. It displayed dozens of missed calls and hundreds of unread messages, all from Marcus. I expressionlessly deleted them all. Once some people are gone, they're truly gone. A few days passed peacefully. I was busy setting up my new company. Alexander provided me with substantial help. Our relationship, which began as a simple partnership, slowly grew into a subtle, unspoken understanding. One day, Ethan came to report on his work. He handed me a background investigation report on Marcus, Ms. Grace. While organizing Marcus's files, I found something strange. I took the document, feeling a little confused. It's about the reports of that tsunami all those years ago. Ethan pointed to one of the newspaper clippings. The local news at the time did report a tourist being rescued from the water, but the rescuer mentioned in the report didn't have a specific name. It just said it was a young man who quietly left after the rescue. My heart skipped a beat. I recalled the scene from back then. I had been swept away by the waves, choking on a lot of water. My consciousness hazy. Vaguely, I remembered a figure strenuously pulling me towards the shore. When I woke up, Marcus was by my side. He was soaked to the bone and looking exhausted. Everyone told me he had saved me, and I had always believed it implicitly. Are you saying the person who saved me might not have been Marcus? Ethan's expression was grave. I checked Marcus's travel records for that day. He was admitted to the local hospital with acute gastroenteritis at the time you had your accident. The timings didn't quite match up. My mind reeled. Had the life-saving grace I'd been grateful for all these years been a complete lie from the beginning? The thought sent a chill through me. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and Marcus's hoarse voice came through. Grace, I'm downstairs at your company headquarters. I walked to the window and indeed saw him standing downstairs. It was raining, and he wasn't carrying an umbrella. He let the rain drench his hair and clothes, looking disheveled and haggard. What do you want? My voice was cold. I want to see you. Just for a moment. His voice was pleading. I hesitated for a moment, then went downstairs. I wanted to see what tricks he was planning. In the coffee shop, Marcus sat across from me. He looked like he had lost a lot of weight, his eyes sunken. Grace, I know I was wrong. He started with remorse. Tiffany and I have completely broken up. I threw away everything she ever gave me. I've been thinking a lot these past few days. I just can't go on without you. He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. I looked at him and suddenly asked, Marcus, do you remember the first thing you said to me after you saved me ashore that year? He froze. a hint of panic flashing in his eyes. He tried hard to remember but couldn't recall anything. The situation was too chaotic then. I only remember pulling you out, and I was almost out of energy myself. He answered vaguely. I sneered internally and pressed on. Then do you remember what color clothes I was wearing? His face grew even darker. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Was it blue? Maybe? No. Pink? His voice grew increasingly uncertain. I clearly remembered that I was wearing a white dress that day, and the first thing he said to me after pulling me ashore was, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." But clearly knew none of this. He was still putting on an act. Seeing the change in my expression, he started playing the victim. "Grace, why are you suddenly asking all this? Are you doubting my feelings for you? I'd give my life for you. Why won't you believe me?" His eyes welled up. His voice choked. He looked genuinely sincere, as if he were suffering enormous injustice. If it hadn't been for Ethan's investigation, I might have wavered again. But now, I just felt utterly disgusted. He still didn't understand why I was leaving. He thought that if he just got rid of Tiffany and humbled himself to apologize, I would come back. He never thought he was in the wrong, only that I was being unreasonable. I stood up, looking down at him. "Marcus, stop your pathetic act. You don't love me, you're just used to my presence. You're just afraid of losing someone who loved you unconditionally." With that, I turned and walked away, without a trace of reluctance. He chased after me, grabbing my arm in the rain. "Grace, what do you want from me? I've done so much for you already. What more do you want me to do?" He roared at me in a fit of rage. I forcefully shook off his hand. "Let go." My voice was cold as ice. Between us, even that so-called life-saving grace was a lie. What else is there for me to cherish? With that, I got into Alexander's car without looking back. He had just arrived to pick me up. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Marcus frozen in place, his face filled with shock and disbelief. The heater was on in the car. Alexander handed me a cup of hot tea. He had seen everything that happened downstairs from the car. I nodded, taking the hot tea to warm my hands. A pathetic man living in his own lies. Alexander didn't press for details, just drove quietly. His thoughtfulness relaxed my tense nerves. Back home, I asked Ethan to dig deeper into the investigation. I needed to know what the truth of that tsunami truly was. If wasn't the one who saved me, then who was it? A few days later, Ethan gave me the final investigation results. He also brought someone with him, Frank, a dark-skinned, simple-looking middle-aged man. MS. Grace, this is Frank. He was a Coast Guard patrolman in that area when the tsunami happened that year. Frank nervously rubbed his hands together as he recounted that day's events. The winds and waves were extremely strong that day. We received a warning and went to evacuate tourists, but I saw a young man, disregarding the danger, rush into the sea. He dragged a girl out of the waves. That was you. My breath hitched. What did that young man look like? Frank tried hard to remember. He was tall, fair-skinned, and looked like a student. He pulled you to shore, performed first aid, and left quietly once he saw you were all right. I asked him his name then, but he didn't say, only that he was also a tourist. As spoke, he pulled out an old phone from his pocket. I thought he did a good deed, so I secretly took a photo. He brought up the photo for me to see. The picture was a bit blurry, but it was clear enough to make out the young man's profile. Delicate features, a sturdy build, and determined eyes. Despite the years that had passed, and despite his face being still quite youthful, I recognized him at once. That person was Alexander. My mind was blank. So, the hero who offered me a ray of hope in despair all those years ago wasn't Marcus, but Alexander. Marcus had just happened to be there when I woke up. He had stolen gratitude that rightfully belonged to someone else and shamelessly enjoyed it for so many years. A tidal wave of absurdity and fury washed over me. All my years of sacrifice and forbearance had been built upon a complete sham. The last shred of obligation I felt towards Marcus vanished at that moment. What remained was only endless detestation. I had Ethan send all the evidence, including Frank's recorded testimony and the photo, along with the signed divorce papers, to Marcus. I didn't want to see his hypocritical face again. Let these pieces of evidence be the final straw that broke his back. Marcus received the package. When he saw the photo and the testimony, he was completely stunned. He clutched the photo, his hands trembling uncontrollably. His biggest secret had been laid bare. He called, his voice filled with unprecedented panic. "Grace, listen to me. It's not what you think." I listened coldly, Couldn't be bothered to say a single word. I love you. I was just so afraid of losing you. That year, when I saw you lying on the beach, I admit it was a moment of weakness, but my feelings for you are true. His explanations were weak and full of holes. I simply hung up. Immediately, he started to bombard me with texts, messages, and emails. The content transformed from pleas and desperate apologies to incoherent curses and threats. He completely broke down. The hero facade he had carefully woven for years shattered. In front of me, he no longer had anything to brag about. Meanwhile, after Robert learned that his own son was my rescuer, he saw an excellent opportunity to form a deep alliance with the Mu family. He spared no effort to ingratiate himself with me. The best way to do so was to help me deal with the nuisance that was Marcus. Robert used all his resources and methods to launch a swift and brutal retaliation against Marcus's company. He first poached their core technical team, then cut off all their raw material supply channels. After that, he used his capital advantage to short the Lee family's stocks on a massive scale. Marcus was overwhelmed with problems, begging for help everywhere, but met with dead ends at every turn. No one dared to offend Robert at this time. In just half a month, the Lee family's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Banks came to collect debts, and employees resigned en masse. Marcus lost everything overnight. He vented all his resentment on me, believing it was my revenge, that I had conspired with the Song family to drive him to desperation. He started staking out my company headquarters. He was gaunt and his eyes wild, like a cornered, rabid dog ready to bite. Alexander, worried about my safety, assigned a team of bodyguards to me. Marcus couldn't get close to me, only glaring at me from a distance with venomous eyes. Looking at him now, I felt not a ripple in my heart. The pitiful often have something despicable about them. All of this, he brought upon himself. My life's focus shifted to my career and the person truly worthy of my love. Alexander's pursuit of me was gentle yet restrained. He remembered all my preferences. He would send delicious meals when I was busy. He would offer a quiet embrace when I was tired. Our relationship naturally blossomed through such subtle and nurturing companionship. The family's company eventually went bankrupt. All their assets were seized and auctioned off by the court. Marcus became an unemployed drifter. He drank heavily every day, living off the charity of his old friends. But he soon discovered that those so-called buddies shunned him when he fell on hard times. No one was willing to lend him money anymore. He became a pariah in the city, a stray dog that everyone wanted to chase away. In his desperation, he thought of Tiffany. He didn't know that Tiffany's life was even more miserable than his. After had drained her of all her money, Tiffany's reputation was completely ruined. She was labeled a gold digger and a mistress. When she tried to return to her old ways, she found no one dared to take her on. She could only rent a cheap apartment, scraping by with odd jobs. When found her, she was being hassled by her landlord, who was demanding rent. Two equally destitute individuals met in a filthy hallway. There was no rekindling of old flames, only mutual hatred. "You have the nerve to come looking for me?" Tiffany looked at the man before her, her eyes full of contempt. "If it weren't for you, would Robert have kicked me out? You useless good-for-nothing." Marcus was incensed by her words. "You have the nerve to blame me? If it weren't for you, you bitch, would Grace have divorced me? Would my company have gone bankrupt? It's all your fault." The two started fighting in the narrow hallway, like two defeated roosters, cursing each other with the most venomous words. Marcus, grabbing Tiffany by her hair, dragged her into the rundown apartment. The apartment was a wreck, reeking of stale alcohol and sour smells. They began to argue, dredging up old grievances, from the kiss on the yacht to Robert's slaps. Tiffany, wanting to provoke him, hurled even more vicious words. "Why do you think Grace didn't want you? Because you've been a fraud from beginning to end. You even stole her heroic rescue story. What else do you have? You're nothing but a complete liar. A total joke." Her words pierced Marcus in his most vulnerable spot like a sharp knife. His eyes turned bloodshot, and the last shred of his sanity snapped. "Shut up," he roared, grabbing the ashtray from the table, and slammed it down onto Tiffany's head. Again and again, Tiffany's screams stopped. He dropped the ashtray and collapsed to the floor, his eyes filled with fear and despair. He mumbled my name. "Grace, Grace." Outside, terrified screams from neighbors and the wail of sirens filled the air. He knew everything was over for him. Marcus was sentenced to life in prison for intentional homicide. When the news broke, I was discussing the company headquarters development plans for the next quarter with Alexander. My finger paused on the document for a moment. That once familiar, yet now distant, name flashed through my mind. There was no hatred, no thrill of revenge, only a sense of melancholy remained in my heart. A twisted relationship, an absurd deception, ultimately dragged both of them into a spiral of destruction. His life shouldn't have ended this way, but those were his own choices, and they no longer concerned me. I looked up and saw the concerned expressions of Alexander and Ethan. Ethan, standing nearby, carefully observed my expression. I smiled at him. It's all over. Yes, it's all over. The unpleasant past, the people who constantly entangled me, all had come to an end. They received their just punishment, and I could finally start my new life completely. After was imprisoned, Robert personally came to visit. He expressed his deepest apologies to Richard, and offered to give Mu his full support in business as compensation. Richard politely accepted. Everyone understood that Robert's actions were ultimately for me and Alexander. A year later, my company headquarters successfully went public. At the celebration banquet, Alexander proposed to me in front of everyone. He knelt on one knee, holding a one-of-a-kind ring. Grace, I missed my chance with you in the past. I want to walk the path ahead with you. Will you marry me? I looked into his sincere eyes, smiled, and extended my hand. I do. Our wedding was intimate, with only close family and friends invited. There were no extravagant fireworks or lavish displays, only the purest love reflected in our eyes. Married life was peaceful and happy. I remember one time, a critical project at my company headquarters encountered a snag. I holed myself up in the study, unable to find a solution all night. My mood grew sour, and I couldn't help but feel irritable. In the past, Marcus would have just accused me of making a big deal out of nothing, but didn't. He didn't say much. He just quietly made me a hot tea. Then he took out a piece of paper and helped me untangle the root of the problem. He picked up a fountain pen, his voice gentle. Don't rush. We'll take it one step at a time. His gentle voice had a calming power. That night, we discussed it until late. The problem was eventually resolved with ease. Leaning on his shoulder, I suddenly felt an immense sense of peace. We were partners fighting side by side in our careers, and lovers supporting each other in life. He supported all my decisions, appreciating my independence and strength, and I learned to let down all my guards with him, showing my most vulnerable side. One weekend afternoon, the sun was perfect. We sat on lounge chairs in the garden, watching our children playing on the lawn nearby. They were our fraternal twins. Alexander held me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? I turned my head and pressed a kiss to his lips. I was thinking how lucky I am to have met you. Thank you for rescuing me from the dark depths. Not just on that day, but later in my life too. You taught me that true love isn't about humble admiration and endless sacrifice, but about equal respect and a warm sense of protection. Everything from the past was merely a prelude. My future stretched out, bright with sunshine and blooming with possibilities. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.